In this episode, we're talking about only one of 3 films to win the Big 5 of Academy Awards. What are the Big 5? Well, stay with us as we talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We'll be right back. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. You're home away from home when you want to talk about music and movies, but you can't contact your friends. No one's picking up. They're ghosting you. We're here. We'll never hang up on you.
That's true. That's true.
Right?
Because we're nerds. Nerds.
Well, because we can't physically do it. Also, it's just we can't hang up on you. So, but we'll always be here to provide you with what we think is the best in music and movie podcasting. Yeah. As always, Eric, right?
Yep, that's right.
That's our logo, and we're not changing it.
Nope, not at all.
Maybe
we're fully representing tonight. By the way, we're each of us have something from the shop.
Yeah, right? This was not planned. If you're watching us on YouTube first, before we go any further into that, you need to like and subscribe to this video and subscribe to our podcast. That helps. And yeah, this is totally not planned, but we'll take the opportunity to shill. Is each one of us has a different item from our shop that we launched, which is at retrolifegifts.etsy.com. Eric has the mug,
the Great Escape.
Great Escape mug, which is
it's a movie theater. Yep.
Movie theater. Christy is wearing the cool, hip, retro, good vibes shirt. Sean is helping the cause out with his Got Pencil t-shirt, which is a cool original design, and the awesome pint glass.
Yeah.
And of course, the professor, Nick, is styling with a cardigan sweater over his 3324 podcast logo t-shirt.
Accessorize.
Yes. Nick is going to class up anything that he wears. He automatically ups the classiness by putting a sweater over it, no matter what it is. He could be He could be a house painter. He'll wear a sweater. He is. He's one of the coffee generation. The overachievers, the coffee generation. So we're continuing our month of Oscar best Oscar. I flubbed this the last time too, Eric. Yeah. Best Picture Oscar award winning films. So this is the second in our 5 episode series for the month of March, which is Oscar month. So we decided that we would talk about best picture Oscar winning movies. I can't say it for some reason. I try and say Academy Award winning ones, and I try and say Oscar, and I just can't get out best picture
Oscar winners. Yes.
I don't know what it is. Maybe we should have done this. We should have done a different, like best score. I can say best score. Right? See, that's easy.
We could have done best movie, score best film.
Show 5, you'll have this down, Dean.
I think so. I don't have that high hopes for myself. So joining us tonight, in the middle square, Christy Cuomo.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Very
Christy.
excited. One of my favorite movies.
To talk about this film. Raising the roof off the house is Mr. Sean Grady. As always, you can find him as a part of the historical drama acting concern in the lower Westchester County in New York. They do a lot of great one-act plays dealing with Revolutionary War times, factual stuff too. So it's really great. You kind of learn and you get to see living history in front of you. And of course, the professor, Nick Leshy, is with us.
In the house, yes.
Thank you.
He's got the City of Kick blog. And you can check that out if you're into reading. I don't do no reading, writing, and arithmeticking, but for those that do, you can get your dose of entertainment blog there. We'll put links to both of these gentlemen's endeavors in the show notes as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. So yeah, we're talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Let's do the stats, and then we'll dive right into this one. This was released in November of 1975, directed by the great Milos Forman. Based on the book by Ken Kesey. The budget was $3 to $4 million. Pretty big for a limited set drama piece, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I don't know if Nicholson was that person yet. Made $163 million box office, a bona fide hit. And then here's the reason why we're doing these episodes this month. It was nominated for 9 Oscars. And it won 5. So that's not bad. That's not a bad return on the amount of nominations it got. And like I said in the open, there's a grouping of Oscars called the Big 5. and only 3 films have won the Big Five, which is Best Director, Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. The first one to do it was, I believe it Happened One Night. Was the first one. This was the second one. And then it wasn't until 1991, 1992 until Silence of the Lambs did it again.
Yeah.
So there are movies that have won more Oscars, but only 3 have won what they call the Big Five. Those are like the prestigious, the 5 highest awards, I should say. I would guess. Much like we did, Eric, with On the Waterfront, we assumed that nobody saw On the Waterfront when it came out in 1954. So
no,
I'm not sure we're going to assume any of us saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest when it came out in 75. Would that be a correct assumption?
That is a correct assumption.
No, it is correct assumption.
Well, then you've got an excuse.
Yeah.
Everybody else should have been there.
Fair.
So I'm guessing.
I don't think we could. I could have handled it had I seen it.
Well,
at
who knows?
Sweet age of 10.
Why,
at
Eric?
That point,
I still platoon
I
at
don't know.
9.
Yeah, who knows what we would have thought of it anyway.
No, but I saw Apocalypse Now a few years later, though. That was one of my biggest.
Oh, okay. What, Nick? What's the youngest you've seen a really intense film since we're kind of comparing scars on the Orca?
First movie my dad ever took me to was Hooper with Burt Reynolds. And there's like a topless lady hopping out. So topless lady hanging out. I was showing the shirt. I was showing the shirt.
It's a family podcast.
But in terms of like intense, I mean, I've seen horror movies that were like graphic and stuff. This, I wouldn't call it intense in that sense. It was like psychological,
Hooper?
Real drama, like you believe it.
Are you talking about Hooper now, or are you talking about Cuckoo's Nest?
No, Cuckoo's Nest. Hooper's not a psychological drama.
Hooper. Okay, Sean, was there a movie that you saw when you were very young that was quite intense for you?
I can't recall offhand. I'm sure I was too young. For
Hooper 2?
Yeah, Hooper 2. Yeah.
Even more Hooper?
Yeah, exactly. Can't get enough Hooper.
Maybe this is why Sean is the most sane of everyone on the podcast.
Very true.
I saw I didn't see it in a theater, but the library in my hometown, they used to show movies in the basement of their, like it was like a conference
That's right.
room.
Yeah.
And they screened Night of the Living Dead, the original George Romero one, like the black and white. And I saw that at a really young age when I shouldn't have. And that messed me up. I was like terrified.
Yeah.
I was just like, what was this? And why did, it really just messed me up.
Friday the 13th, part 3. That's what I saw. It was a video. I watched it, and I remember having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and I would not get out of bed until the morning. I was up the whole night waiting for the sun to come out. When it came out, I went to the bathroom.
Sean, to his prostate, you're holding that shit in.
Yeah, no.
I don't think your prostate
I wouldn't
holds
leave the
shit,
room until it was light out. So
this is where we're going.
Shit meaning
to be clear,
not shit holding that stuff.
And there we go again.
Thanks for the punchline analysis.
You knew what the prostate was. That's all.
Okay.
All righty. How do we recover the energy we just lost? I'm going to go. I'll start off with this. I think I had this on VHS. I probably rented it back in the day and then bought it. Mm-hmm. And I used to watch it a lot.
Wow.
And I haven't watched this film in probably decades, maybe. I don't even think you see it on TV. Like they don't show it on cable, maybe on a premium channel. But, and I came away like really, looking at it differently. Probably because I can, appreciate a lot of it a lot more. Nick, did you see this early on? And because I know that you and Sean were both in a production of this. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I played Billy Bibbit. Sean played R.P. McMurphy. It was a great production. First taste of this was I stage managed a college production, which I thought was a brilliant production. And I loved it. And then I went and I read the book, and then I saw the movie on TV. And then we did it, later. So that was fun. And then I saw a version of it with Gary Sinise on Broadway.
Yep.
I saw that, and I like that too.
Yep.
I wish I'd seen the original, not the movie when it came out, but the original play with Kirk Douglas.
That would
have been in the 60s.
Yep.
You know, that would have been amazing, but that was in the 60s. Like you know, Christy, I wasn't born yet. But if I could time travel, I would love to see
There
that.
you go. All right, Sean. What about you? Similar?
I saw this in my 20s. One of those movies. My dad said, you got to watch this. He always tried to get me to watch the classic movies, and sometimes I would balk, and then I finally started listening to him, and I'm like, okay, these are pretty good. And I remember seeing it, VHS, just hanging out with a couple of friends, and I remember I was like, those are the two guys from Taxi. That's Danny DeVito.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at first I didn't realize. I'm like, is that Danny DeVito? Like, that's probably my favorite thing he's ever done, because I think that's like the best acting.
Absolutely.
Where he's not Danny DeVito, he's actually a character.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and then I hadn't seen it again. I saw the play on Broadway that like Nick, Gary Sinise, thought it was great, and then we got cast in it. And I'm like, I'm not looking at this. And it had been almost a decade since I had seen it. And I'm happy, because I wanted to play this part without thinking about Nicholson or anything. And it's funny because I was in the play, and they're very different. The play and the movie, there's a lot of differences. I sometimes hearken back to the play thinking it was part of the movie. And when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, wait, I was watching it the other day, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this. Like, because I think of the play when I think, because having been a part of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Christy, the self-avowed Jack Nicholson fan of the group. Was this an early entry? Was this one that you saw like that kind of turned you on to him?
Yeah, so
as
I might have mentioned this on a previous podcast. My obsession with Jack Nicholson started in 1989 after seeing him as the Joker in Batman. And then I literally, at the ripe age of, I don't know, what was I, 11? I'm bad at math, 76, 11, 12. Well, it depends on the month.
Okay.
You weren't 11.
What? No, not 11. That's weird math. I devoured every Jack Nicholson movie I could. So I saw this really young. And I just remember it was unlike any performance I had seen him in, and probably to this day my favorite performance of Nicholson. I think it's a masterclass in acting, personally. So I saw this really young, obviously VHS, and I have seen it multiple times. And every time I see it, I enjoy it. And much like you, Dean, as I've gotten older, you just kind of appreciate different aspects of it because you can look at it a little bit differently. I've never seen the play. I know it's very different. I know that there's been a lot of issues, which I'm sure we'll talk about with how it translated to film, and there was all this hoopla. But I actually never saw the play. I know that Kirk Douglas wanted to play McMurphy and then aged out of it. But
Yeah. So what did he do? He sold the rights to his son, Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Who then, that's what it was what he did. He couldn't get it off the ground. He tried for years to get it off the ground. And then ended up selling the rights to his son, Michael, who was really young. Michael Douglas in 74, 75 wasn't, what was that? Streets of San Francisco?
Streets of San Francisco. That's right. Lots of episodic TV.
Yeah, he was a TV actor, right, Eric? So he wasn't anything.
He had done a couple of films, but they weren't.
Yeah, nothing big. He was Kirk Douglas's son.
That's right. And I think when he was going to college, he had it was required reading the book. So he loved the book. So when when his dad had the property, of course he was he's going to take that on and just make it happen. So yeah.
Just to put it out there, everybody that was in this movie should have gotten a fucking Oscar.
Oh, absolutely.
Like after revisiting this film now, and after not having seen, everybody should have gotten a fucking Oscar. This should have been like a group. I know that's what Best Picture is, but just down the line, there was not a performance that I was ever
100%
doubting.
That's right.
Even to Sean's point, even Danny DeVito, you know him now as Louis De Palma, Taxi, the Penguin,
the Big Mouth,
Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like he's everything. But as Martini, I'm buying it. Yeah. I'm still buying it.
Oh,
right. And even Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown and Jim and blah, 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 you like as Tabor, he's scary. He's like a scary individual, but he's he's one of the, I love him as that character because he's so unpredictable and almost free spirited, but just down the line, and let's start there a little bit. Let's kind of go through. If you've never seen this film, oh my God, you better, I'm going to say, turn this off, go watch it and rejoin us. Because I trust that you'll do that. So, hey, welcome back. Hopefully you watched it. We're going to talk about the cast now. Of course, Jack Nicholson as R.P. McMurphy. You've got Louise Fletcher as Nurse Ratched. Will Sampson as the Chief or Chief Bromden. And that's where the novel diverges, is the novel is told mainly from his point of view. Mm-hmm. And in the film, he's he's an observer, but he's a totally different way. William Redfield as Harding, Brad Dourif, this was his debut as Billy Bibbit. The great Sidney Lassick as Charlie Cheswick. You've got Christopher Lloyd, Danny DeVito, Dean Brooks as Dr. Spivey, who was the real actual administrator of the hospital. You've got all these other guys. Vincent Schiavelli, who everybody knows from Ghost. He was the subway ghost with Patrick Swayze. Mm-hmm. He would show up in Milos Forman's Amadeus as one of Salieri's assistants when Salieri in the beginning of Amadeus was killing himself. He was the guy that had the desserts. He was like, "Oh, open up, Salieri. We have beautiful desserts for you." And trying to get him to open up. Michael Berryman, who you've seen, he's usually in horror films. So this was just a cast, Scatman Crothers. So there's a Shining connection there. Those two would reteam. Yeah. There's so many crisscrossings of characters. You said, Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd, but then Jack Nicholson would play the Joker. Then Danny DeVito would play the Penguin. Then it would be in Hoffa together. There's just so much like cross-pollination in such a small film, with just a small amount of actors. Great performances across the board. So, like I said, Kirk Douglas played this on Broadway in the 60s. That's when the novel was written by Ken Kesey, who was a night porter in an institution. And it was based on kind of his observations and kind of, that type of a thing. And let's start here, because that's Ken Kesey's original notion was, or his observations working at an institution was, these people aren't necessarily crazy. They're different. Some are different, right? And at that point, and I think that's what the McMurphy character represents and challenges all of us. Well, Nick, do you think what is the notion of crazy? Because McMurphy is brought to the institution. He was in jail, and he was acting erratic or didn't even just want to go to work. So they immediately thought, well, there must be something wrong with him. So let's ship him off and have him evaluated. And that's kind of the way things were back then.
Absolutely, and it's certainly a period of its time. Like it was set in '63. The movie was done in 70-something or other. And one of the challenges we faced with trying to put it up as a play was, it's a lot of outdated references and things like that. And like that's the point with the mental institution, right? The Zap treatment and the lobotomy and all the stuff that they would do. And you look back now, you're like, what were they thinking? But the theme of the play too is about individuality, right? And subordination. And some people sometimes act out of line and suddenly we ostracize them. But I find it really interesting that most of the central characters, they're there voluntarily. They're not institutionalized, So that also is a great kind of way to look into the story too, that I thought was fascinating.
So the ones that are there voluntarily is their notion, or their family is saying, well, you got problems, you need to be, you need to be put away, or you should put yourself away, right? That was kind of like the thought back then. Is some of them like Sean, like Harding, seems to be the most rational and level-headed guy. He's obviously got some. He's very touchy and very high strung. Well, but that seems to be
it also is a little bit like some homosexual undertones, like as if that maybe he's going there to work out whatever. He's got a very attractive wife. It's not working. What's wrong with me? What, like I don't can't seem to satisfy her. And yes, he does seem to be the most rational guy. And like I say, sometimes I cross, the two plot about Harding from the play and from the movie. Because I feel like we made some choices when we did the play, and I kind of look at the movie in a different way, and I'm like, am I seeing the same thing? I don't know if the movie is not as overt as the play was, in my opinion, about that. But yeah, he's the bull goose loony, as they said in the play. But yeah, he's the guy that I think McMurphy targets first, and wants to take usurp the power from him.
Yeah, because I think in the movie, Christy, Harding is kind of like since he seems to be the most sensible and most level-headed one, he kind of verbally abuses Cheswick. He does exert some superiority. So yeah, it makes sense when McMurphy shows up that it's Harding that he goes after.
He's definitely threatened by McMurphy when he shows up. They're playing cards, because McMurphy is unlike anyone they've ever seen, especially in there. I mean, here's a guy who's happy, jovial. He takes charge. He takes lead. So for Harding to see that, it's just like anything else in life. Is someone else comes in, and if they are a representation of maybe all the things you wish you were, but can't be, well then they're a threat. It's just like anything else, right? But to go back to what you were saying before, where they sent McMurphy there because he wasn't he didn't want to go to work duty. He didn't want to do this. So he sent, and it still applies to that. Like you look at what are the standards of society? What determines who's crazy and who's not crazy? Like Billy's there voluntarily. He's a kid. I mean, he's a kid. Why is he there? Because his mother. Right. And you start convincing yourself. The same thing with Harding. Is Harding, I think there's some, they allude a little bit to, maybe there's a little homosexuality. Maybe that's why he's not, satisfying his wife. So there's all these undertones going on. But yeah, Harding is definitely, he's threatened by McMurphy. And that's where that comes in. And, not to skip to the end of the movie, but at the end of the movie, at the end of the movie, Harding has to the best of his ability adopted a lot of McMurphy's mannerisms. Like so, it comes like he finally becomes, as much as he can, the person that he admired.
Yeah.
They do. A lot of them change because of him. That's the big point.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So Eric, the question is, based on the beginning of the film, we think that McMurphy's not crazy, right? We think, and the doctor says as much. Like, are you faking this? Are you, and we assume that he's not, and you assume that McMurphy's character thinks that he isn't, right? That he's just trying to, and there's some allusions to it in the middle of the movie where Nicholson's like, oh, I'm out in 68 days. And the guy's like, no, you're here till we, so there's kind of an indication that this was a ruse to kind of get out of work.
Yeah.
But was he, do you think, in your opinion, we'll kind of go there, was he really crazy?
I think, as the doctors pointed out in the film,
spirit.
Well, I think a little bit of both, but he was certainly an intense figure. Thinking that he was going to be able to coast his way, I'm going to get out of prison because I only got like 70 days to go, whatever it was. And this is an easy way out. So I'm going to fake being, so this way they, whatever. But yeah, that was a great scene, by the way, when he finds out that, oh no, you're going to be here a lot longer when we release you. And, then when everybody tells him that, oh, we're here voluntarily, he's like, what the... why? And that really, I think, threw him in the sense of kind of beat him into like, wait a minute now, this is something that everything changes from that point on. So, yeah, but I think as the doctors pointed out in that scene where they're all sitting around, is, I think he's, do you agree that I think he's crazy, but he's not overly psychotic. One doctor pointed out, but he definitely has that intensity.
He has moments. He has flashes of.
That's right. Yeah. And it's enough to, obviously whatever he was in prison for, he was diagnosed by antisocial behavior to begin with. So
statutory rape.
Okay. Well, there
was.
Well, there you go.
That scene where the doctor's like, like.
Okay. Well,
and I think you make a lot of good points there, right? Is once he found out that people were there voluntarily.
Yeah.
It almost challenged his notion of freedom. Is like, what if you don't have to be here? I have to be somewhere.
That's right.
Either prison or somewhere. So this is probably the easiest for me. But you guys don't have to be here. And and like he said, he goes, "You're no crazier than the people that are out there, Sean." So what, like, that was a moment of realization for him where he assumed that these people were crazy. They're all committed except for Tabor. Tabor was one of the few that was committed. It then challenged his notion of, well, these people, you don't really have to be here then.
Mm-hmm. He also underestimated them. They knew that he was committed, and they kind of, he says it, you played me, you let me go after that nurse and try to break her down, and they can keep me here. Meanwhile, you guys can walk out whenever you want. Do I think McMurphy was crazy? I don't think so. I think he's just a rule breaker, a risk taker. He's going to push the envelope. He might not be. He's street smart, but doesn't always make the wisest decisions.
Kind of like the guy that touches the hot stove and then realizes it's hot and touches it again anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of, Christy, you think like he's, I don't think he was crazy either. He was just he represented these quote, I'm going to put it in air quotes, these misfits. These guys weren't necessarily, again, you most of them you could put into society. And they'd be deemed eccentric nowadays, perhaps, or or no more or less weirder than anybody else.
I never in any viewing ever thought McMurphy was crazy. I think he's passionate, and sometimes when you're very passionate about things, even if you don't understand why they're passionate about whatever the thing is, people may think you're crazy. But he even explains it to the doctor. He goes, he himself said, I don't think it's crazy not to want to do these things or to want to do these things. He doesn't lie. He thinks he's going there instead of prison. He's going to get out in the 70 days or 68 days and it's going to be a cakewalk and then he's free. And he doesn't learn the truth of his actual sentence. But I think going into it, like there's nothing crazy about him. He's passionate, like Sean said. He's street smart, but that passion, as we see throughout the movie, that he has for different things, leads him to his own demise. Really, So it's I would love for someone to give me a compelling argument as to why they think he's actually crazy.
Well, let me ask Nick. Would a sane person willingly have themselves committed to a mental hospital? Well, no, but think about it though. A sane person would. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but if you think about it on the surface, it's not a good idea.
I think he has issues. You can't deny that. Yeah. He's got aggression issues. It's more than just a statutory rape. Like he's been violently. I think they mentioned all the assaults that he did and everything, and you could tell he's like this. He had two opportunities to run away, and he didn't. Right? When he jumps over the fence, he goes back into the bus instead of just taking off. And then he had the window open, and he could have jumped out, but he waited. So it was like, did he start seeing himself like, maybe I need help? But helping somebody like that, does it help to put them into like slave labor work camps? Is that going to stop the aggression or just keep them away from society? And yet you have this institution that thinks, okay, we're helping these poor people, by what? Like shock therapy and lobotomies and this group therapy where, maybe Nurse Ratched thought she was really helping them, but you see as it progresses that it's power. It's like, she knows how to manipulate them. So I guess the whole stereotype of what is crazy. I mean, the movie plays some of that stuff for laughs, and you see a lot of people do mental illness stuff sometimes for laughs. But this is realism, like, kind of see it, and it's yeah. So is he crazy? Then we're all crazy. You know what I mean?
Well,
but
right.
he definitely played that up a little bit. For sure.
Nick,
Right.
I
Christy?
think when he, at least my interpretation, when he leaves, goes over the fence, and then takes the bus, and then takes them all, and then even at the end when the windows open and before we find out what happens to Billy, I don't think he honestly ever thinks he is going to be a victim of this system. Like I think he always in his heart and mind believe he's going to get out because he doesn't belong there. Like I just think that he's smart, but he kind of falls victim to some of his
He's his own worst enemy.
Yeah. But I mean, they did the close-up shots of him when he's like waiting there, at night, and he's like hurry it up in there, and then you find out like he's there all night, like they slept, So but you see the close-up of his face, like, and I'm like, I would give anything to know what Jack Nicholson as an actor was thinking, that the character was thinking during that moment, because you see him going through different things, like he's looking at the window, he's getting serious, he's getting angry, he's like. It was a great scene, and he did it intentionally. He's like, I could escape right now, and I'm not going to do it, So that's a choice, and and again, when he jumped over the fence, he stayed. Not because he thought I could get escape again. He's like, he wanted to help these folks. Like, and I'm like, does he have like this messiah complex or something? But he could have escaped, or maybe he just didn't want to escape. He's like, I'm just going to do something again. I'm going to get arrested again. I'm going to get thrown behind bars again. Maybe they can help me. Maybe I am a little nuts. Who knows?
He thinks he's always 10 steps ahead, but he's never.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, Sean, do you think he thinks that this is just too easy? Like, I could escape, but you know what? That's just too easy. I'm going to go get the bus, and we're going to bring everybody out.
Well, I think that was the bus one. I thought the same thing. I'm like, he could be out of there, like done. But he takes them, he takes them for the bus ride. And I think that was his way of kind of winning those guys over. And I think he genuinely starts to care about these guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he doesn't leave at the end, because he's going to miss these guys. And yeah, they got drunk and he fell asleep. But again, he could have left again, and he could have, and he just, I think he needs those guys as much as they need him, or they think they need him. And he started to care for them. And that's why he doesn't necessarily leave the first time. I think it's because I think he wanted to win them over. The other times I think like, he can't do it. I think he would miss them too much, or he needs them anyway. Didn't think he would ever need them.
Well,
or anybody for that matter, right?
No one. No one wakes up, Chief.
They're all bombed.
Well, to Nick's going back to Nick's point about what's going on in his head, I think you could reference a lot of scenes like that the whole time when he's sitting in group therapy. He's observing. He's like, what? He's looking this way. He's like, he's finding out about everybody's situation, and he's just kind of like absorbing all of this stuff. And do you think this is a reflection of the times too? I mean, is he a rebel? Is he some sort of because it is, right on the cusp of Vietnam and all this upheaval going on?
I think he's more of a social outcast than a rebel. I don't think he's like a rebel in the Marlon Brando, James Dean sense. I think he's more of someone that doesn't really fit into society, but there's nothing really wrong with. He just, because like Sean said, he felt comfortable with these people, maybe because he felt like he was the smartest guy in the room, and maybe in society he wasn't. Maybe he felt like Harding, where
that's a good point.
He everybody kind of looked up to him, like there's the scene, he just breaks my heart in this film, but. At the end when they're getting ready to escape, and Cheswick comes up to him, he goes, "Mac, we're going to say goodbye to me, Mac." And he goes, "I'm going to miss you, Mac." Like it was that kind of like, I think that kind of may have had an effect on like that type of thing. Like Cheswick was so like, sad, but happy about it too. Like that he was escaping and he's, but I'll never forget you. And I'll never, like, cause he made such an impact and maybe, to Nick, to your point, when he's sitting there and there's that shot of him just kind of, things are, the party's winding down. They're waiting for Billy to finish what he's going to do so they can get out of there. And then it's that kind of down where things, when you have a party and everybody's been drinking and then things just start to settle and then you kind of get in your own mind a little bit. And I think that's where that may have been going. I think we're all on the same track where he felt connected to these people, either consciously or subconsciously. Something kept him there. Right. Sean, you're right. He could have just leapt out the window. Chief was ready to rock and roll with him, but it just didn't happen.
Well, let's not forget too. I mean, there's a healthy dose of dominance and submission in this thing too. I mean, you look at all these guys and they're broken, and whatever the system is, whatever screwed up system this is, there's a hierarchy. You got the doctors who are locked away in their offices. You never see the doctors. It's always so you have, domineering women controlling the situation. And you have, dare I say, I mean, I think in the book, he was cast as a racist by casting all the orderlies are black men. And that was, the author was, he called them the Black Boys, I guess, but they never didn't use that name in the film. But it's interesting to me that there's a certain amount of that control happening to these men in society, that they're all have real problems and they're deemed crazy. And there's a healthy dose of just as something not normal here going on in the sense of Nurse Ratchet's character and how she's like taking control of it and manipulating everything and just sort of like, and McMurphy, I think he kind of comes alive with that. And I think he's maybe he acts as the foil. Like I'm going to,
absolutely,
beat her, whatever. So
beat her at her own game. Absolutely. That's a perfect segue to Louise Fletcher. Who you can't talk about Jack Nicholson's performance without her. I don't think his performance would not be what it was, and we talked about yin and yang with this group in Heat, right? You couldn't have an out of control Al Pacino without a steely, stoic Robert De Niro, right? And in this film, you can't have a Jack Nicholson that's big and boisterous without Louise Fletcher balancing that out. The other side of the pendulum where she's until the very end, she's unflappable. She's steely-eyed. She, like Eric said, she's manipulative, power hungry, control, whatever it is that is her deal. She inflicts her will upon these poor souls, by keeping them dosed up, making them think that they don't have anything to offer. Right, the way she controls Billy Bibbit, which is just tragic. This young man and Nicholson said, like, Billy, you should, what are you here? What are you doing here? You shouldn't be, you're too young to be in this kind of a situation. So, Louise Fletcher is just the way she just kind of is, kind of in such a manipulation mode, I suppose is the best way to put it. Do you think she was always that way, Sean? Or do you think that she kind of grew into the role, or was that the way it was back then, where it's just kind of, like that was the attitude? These people are not worth the time. So it's kind of more akin to a jail warden than a helper.
I think she really believes in what she's doing, to a point. I don't know if she's going in there saying, I'm going to mess with these people. I think there's a part of her that she has a position of, no doubt, a position of power. But I believe that she's got to believe in what it is that she's doing, to go there day after day and think she's making a difference in their lives. However, dated we now, or off the wall it seems to us now. I do believe she believes in it. She remembers everything. Reminds them of the rules constantly. Treating them not like men, though. You're right, like almost like children in a way. Mm-hmm. But I do believe she believes in what she's doing.
But I'm sorry, every villain has they
Right.
never think they're doing anything wrong, right? They're always
let me bring up this point though, Nick. I think Sean's right, correct up to a point, because about in the middle of the movie, they have a meeting about McMurphy, right? All the doctors are like, I don't think he's crazy. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. And then they ask Nurse Ratched, and she's like, no, we can't turn our back on him. And her look is kind of like, this guy is making a fool of me, making a mockery of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not done yet. And I think that was a personal.
I agree with Dean.
The McMurphy thing, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But with the men in general, I do think there is a sense, yes, but I think that's a challenge for her, and she wants to break him down. But I do think, I think the other guys.
McMurphy comes in and he's messing up the works, right? He's challenging her, like her authority. She's not going to have that.
He's the first one to challenge her.
That's not going to happen.
But
right. But that scene, like Dean was pointing out, like if you notice, they're not even looking at her, right? The way the doctors are positioned, they're sitting there in a circle, in a tight circle. She's sitting behind them, and the doctor looks over her shoulder. What do you think? And she's like, she's speaking from behind, and yet she has the power. Like her opinion matters most, which is odd. It's like, so where does she get this power? I wonder.
But it's a great scene that's not in the play, and I don't know if it's in the book or not. And she has the power now right there to let him go. He's going to leave. He's caused so much disruption to her authority and everything. So you would think, okay, get him out of here. I'm back.
Yeah, that would have gotten rid of her problem.
So right? I think it's a combination. I think it's like she totally senses like I can break this person. Bring him here. He can't leave now until we say, we'll do some stuff to him. But at the same time, I think it is a kind of a challenge. Like having him there is a threat to her. Yeah. So I think she is putting up a little bit of maybe in her mind, like Sean says, I think she justifies it. I think she thinks I have the power to help these people, and I'm going to show him, and I'm going to help him too. But at the same time, you see the anger in the eyes whenever things like that happen, and she knows. She'll remember every little weakness that somebody has and use it as a weapon, weaponize it.
Christy, do you think she relishes that challenge? Like, do you think it kind of like there's someone here that is actually on my level, and I see this as a challenge? Like for in that sadistic, in that really messed up,
they're adversaries,
way?
And they are parallel characters, right? Because I think it was Sean just said that. Or maybe it was Nick, that she has the power to let him go. If she had said in that meeting, let him go, he would have been gone. If Nicholson had not gotten on the bus when he escaped and left, but they both keep each other in this world together. So there's this like, it's like almost like a power struggle that is happening between these two characters on such a deeper level that we're watching, because she can get rid of him and he can leave. Like these opportunities arrive, but yet they both, and maybe because of the challenge of, I definitely never got any sexual tension between them, but not sexual tension, but there is this undeniable tension between the two of them. They are connected. Yeah,
they're both fighting for the souls of the patients.
They are connected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
they both think they're redeeming them.
They need each other, right? They need it in this power struggle.
But Ratched also goes through kind of what Harding and the other people, what the other inmates go through is, so she's this one character throughout, and then after the incident, well, she's a completely different person, right? She's a lot softer with her neck brace on, and with asking about the dentist, and just there's a softness in everything about her, in her eyes and just in her demeanor, because I don't think it's because she feels like she won, but because McMurphy had just changed everything. Nothing was ever going to be the same again after him. But to what you were asking earlier, Dean, I think they're running parallel in this movie. Like they are. It's like they're each. It's the same. They're vying for the same things.
Yeah, but I think they both overplay their hands. I think Nurse Ratched making him stay is an overplay of her hand, and then the overplay of McMurphy's hand is thinking that or misjudging that he was in control of how long he's going to be there. Right, so because once he goes through the brutal, the electric shock scene, which again just with Cheswick, it just tears my heart out. Like I don't think he'd ever been through that before because he's a pretty docile person. So he was subjected to a side of his voluntary existence that I'm sure when you're voluntary, you're signing away that we can do what we feel we need to do for you and take, your care. And the way they dragged him out, and he just kept saying, Mac, help me, Mac. Like, it was just like kind of like looking to him to be he's been the protector or he's been the advocate for these guys, through his visits, and nothing. He couldn't do anything for him there. And then they wheel him out and he's like just like a hump of, and they're like, what? Like,
do you think that this happened to him before?
No.
Cheswick?
I don't think so.
It's because of McMurphy, though, that instilled that defiance in him. I want my cigarettes.
Oh, yeah, that was such a great scene.
And that was
right.
Yeah. That was the scene. That was like, that's, prompted that for this to happen. So, wow. Yeah. And and
it comes at a cost. Like, I think the point was that kind of freedom comes at a cost, where Cheswick was very dominant. Hang on, Nick, Cheswick was very dominated by Harding, by everybody. And then he started with, there was the one scene where he's like, Nurse Ratched, can we move on to new business? Like you start to see Cheswick kind of start to poker a little bit, like just over time, he starts to kind of like he's the one that probably tries to change the most, I think, Nick.
Yeah.
What are you going to go with?
I was just going to say, I think Cheswick, he totally knew the shock treatment, what was going to happen. So? That's why he was so scared. Whereas, McMurphy, I think, had no clue. I think he knew something was going to happen.
Yeah.
But
you can see when he walks in.
The look on his face when they put that thing in his mouth when he's like, what the hell, So, and they're like, this isn't going to hurt. That's the line.
What's this? It's conducting gel.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you see everybody's faces in that ward. They all know. They see this so many times a day probably. And it's so dehumanizing. But Cheswick certainly knew what was coming up. If maybe he didn't have it, but he's heard from other people who've had it, so I have a feeling he might have had it at least once or something like that. But McMurphy,
Dean,
that was the first time for him.
we're talking about Cheswick so much, I think I read he was so into the role that they actually got concerned about him on set, where they said, if it gets out of hand, we have doctors here. Like that's how intense it was. And honestly, like the performances, again, this is a masterclass in acting. If you want to study acting, like you said earlier, there is not one bad performance. Every single one of them just just
even the quiet roles, even the roles that are like no words.
The people, the old man in the wheelchair,
like Seafeld, and
the guy with the cane in the chair, right?
Yeah.
Hitting the punching bag with those.
Some of the extras were actual inmates of that facility. So some of the ones who don't speak.
Angelica Houston has a cameo in that movie. Did you see her?
She's. I read that.
Angelica Houston,
the boat.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
The bridge. She's on the bridge when their boat comes in.
Yeah, well, they were dating at the time.
Like
she was with Nicholson at the time.
That's got to be her. It was yes. Yeah, she's just standing on the bridge.
Well, I had read too that Milos Forman was he never showed any of the cast dailies. Like he never showed them what he filmed.
Yeah.
And Nicholson was getting really concerned about that, because he was uncertain about his performance, and finally. He alone got to see some of the dailies. They worked, Michael Douglas
Milos
worked that out, but he never talked. He never talked to Milos Forman on set.
Interesting because it was such a. You would never think. You would think that they would really need to have a collaborative relationship with material this intense and with acting this intense, like you said, where people are playing people that are really have a lot of problems and are somewhat disturbed, that can get kind of intense, and to not have that disconnect between the director and the actor is very very interesting. Now there were a couple of people that were tossed around beforehand before Nicholson signed on. They originally, I think they were looking at Gene Hackman was like the main choice. I think Burt Reynolds was thrown in there as well. James Caan and Marlon Brando.
I could totally see all of them, but it all would have been different.
I think Brando would have been a little too old. I don't know about Brando. He would have been too. James Caan maybe, because he's kind of a little. He's got that little craziness to him. Hackman. What do you think, Sean? Hackman?
I don't.
No, I don't see it either.
Nicholson has this.
He's a great actor, but
this ability to like that slyness, that smirk, that even like that devilish grin. And I don't see like where when he's flipping the card and they're like, do you have any questions? He's like, do you have her number? Like, it's just the way he does things. Like there's a he has like I don't know if it's a childlike thing. Like, it's just I don't know what to call it.
It's a sly.
Like,
it's a sly grin.
He's in on every joke, right? And I just don't know if anybody else could have brought that. And I wonder how much. Yep. Improvisation they did or he did to some, because it's just I don't know, you watch it and you're just like, it's so natural, like it's just and I don't know. And I love Gene Hackman, don't get me wrong, I just don't know if he could have brought that.
Yes,
it might have been different. He could do it, but I don't know. Eric, I got 2 words for you. Juicy fruit. Chief, what about Chief?
I mean,
Chief.
My God!
In the book, he occupies a totally different space, but he is the one that flew over the cuckoo's nest. Actually, he's the one that in this movie that gets set free, and that really doesn't necessarily change the most, but comes to the realization, right? That because of what happened to his father, he figured, I'll just cash in. There's no reason, I don't want to set myself up for a harder life than I need.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just lay low. But then he meets someone who's just so full of crazy, unpredictable, but just so full of life.
That's right. Yeah.
Engaged with Chief when no one would, even though, everybody assumed he was deaf and couldn't speak. He still brought him into the circle, with the basketball and then Chief was like running down the court and he's kind of like skipping.
It's almost like the Chief was like his pet project, like because he's first of all, he's so big. Like when he's holding the rum bottle, like the Bacardi bottle, it looks like a beer bottle because his hand is so huge. And then when he gives it to McMurphy, it's like it's a 750. It's a big bottle. This is not a small bottle. And when he's holding it, it looks like just a little beer bottle. But I mean, it's. He breaks my heart too. I mean, it's all those scenes with him and Nicholson, and when he finally does speak to him, it's it just it gets you. And
the scene when they're playing basketball and the guard makes the basket and Chief pushes the ball out. And the guard's like, what are you guys fucking crazy? It's like, they're fucking crazy. You're playing in an institution with these people. I just thought it was like fun. Like he was so like the guard, the orderly was so mad that he pushed the ball out.
Yeah.
Because you guys are fucking crazy. It's like, well, yeah.
Even the first basketball game when he's trying to get Chief and I think it's Washington. He's like, he can't, he can't hurt you. He's like, well, he can't hear you. He's like, well, it's not hurting him. It's not hurting. Yeah. And he has this whole conversation. Then he gets Bancini and he gets on his shoulders and he's like, and Bancini's like walking away. He's like, I'm tired. He's like, no,
I'm tired.
Please don't ask the favorite scenes because I'm going to have a really hard time if you ask our favorite.
Oh my God.
One of those great uplifting, like this movie. I don't know if no one's ever seen it before. It is somewhat depressing. And that's not depressing. It's sad, but it's also hopeful. And there's a lot of great hopeful scenes. There's a lot of great scenes when these guys are coming together. The World Series scene, Sean, was that in the play?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was when you were kind of doing that, when you guys were performing that, what were you thinking about when, since you said you didn't want to reference the film or anything?
Yeah, that's probably
how did you approach that?
That's probably one of my favorite scenes. I think it's one of those. Well, if you're not going to let me watch the World Series, I'm going to replay a World Series in my mind, and I'm going to get these guys to buy. See if I can get these guys to buy in. Like we're watching the World Series. We're crazy enough to pull this off.
I always wondered if he intentionally wanted the to join in, or was he doing it himself? Like when I read the script, and then like everybody else joins in too, kind of shows his power. Like, do you think he sat there and like, okay, everybody's gonna just come and watch it with me and just pretend,
I think everybody was gonna go over there and see what the hell he was doing. Bonus is that they're going, they're getting in on it too and going.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm so fascinated by the fact that you guys actually performed this, and that gives me a whole new, like, I only know the film and didn't read the book.
I did not.
You guys all read the book? Did you all read the book? Or
I did not read the book.
I didn't read the book.
I read the book.
How different is the book to the movie, or and the play? Like what are the different? Like, are there any specific differences per se?
It's from the Chief's point of view, so you get a lot more about his dad, a lot more about and you see it like progress. You see the Chief change, and he's a lot more scared. Like he's petrified of getting the shock treatment.
Okay.
And then the original play was not as good from what I heard in terms of like having some of those scenes. So they redid it. And they added more scenes. I think it was after the movie, or I don't know if it was right before the movie, but then that's the version I love because that has so much more character build up for the Chief. And then the ending, you think an ending that's like, spoiler alert, McMurphy dies, right? And yet it's so uplifting, right? He's murdered, he's killed.
Nick,
but you think that's going to be like, I know, come on.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We asked everybody if you hadn't seen it to stop it and watch it. So now Nick didn't spoil anything.
Yeah.
No.
But the ending, like you say, it's so uplifting. So, like, I think to that,
the ending's uplifting.
That's a big change.
There's
I think
a suicide, a lobotomy, and a murder.
It is.
But he's free.
It wasn't a murder. It wasn't a murder.
It was killing.
Mercy killing.
He was dead.
And Chief explained it. He goes, "I'm taking you with me." It's like
1975, the first assisted suicide.
They build up.
There you go.
But they build up that it's not like a water fountain in the movie. It's just like electrical power grid or something like that, and. They hype it up, they foreshadow because he tries to get the Chief to do it and the Chief doesn't want to do it. And then at the end, he does it in front of the guys and all the guys are like, kind of cheering him on as he runs off, so it is
Harding opens up the window for him, lets him out because he still had the keys. She doesn't throw it through the window in the play. Harder to pull off on a
sure.
I like this version because it set it up where when Nicholson tried to do in the beginning, towards the beginning of the film, McMurphy was like, "Yeah, we're going out tonight. I'm going to the bar, and I'm gonna pick this thing up which is a heavy marble thing and throw it through the window." And the point of it was, as he leaves because he failed, he said, "At least I tried," and that kind of sets things into motion of just at least try,
right?
Speak up, see what happens, and you see from that point, that's when things start to kind of turn around. You see Cheswick start to talk a little more, and
he's
Tabor
infectious,
also,
right?
Just kind of
McMurphy's infectious, and that's what he does.
What's that?
And although Dean, you said he's a misfit and maybe didn't fit in society, and here he's in a lot of regards a natural born leader, right? Maybe even just to these people, but because of him, all these people, for the most part, step out of their shell. Like at least start trying.
I mean.
That's a great point.
When he gets zapped, he comes back and he as if like, oh, this is. They thinking the worst, and he's like, "I'm fine."
It's almost foreshadowing, right? What happens to him at the end?
That's what makes it sad at the end is they don't realize, and they're telling all these war stories and like, oh, I think he's doing this. I think he's going. He's escaped. He knocked out two. I think that.
That's right. That's right.
The play, but
you're right.
No, you're right.
Right. Yeah. And then Tabor says Jack Dunphy's full of shit.
Right.
Well, he's like Jack Dunphy said he's up in the second floor. He's like Jack Dunphy's full of shit.
Yeah.
Like I know they know about the lobotomy, but he's like, the shock therapy. Like you're gonna be okay. It's gonna mess you up for a little bit. but you'll come back and you'll be able to get back in the game again.
Yeah,
which makes it heartbreaking when.
Well, Nurse Ratchet's expression though, she wasn't buying it. She looked over and saw Billy. She kind of was like, come on, like Jesus Christ, like you fooling these rubes. But she's probably seen, unfortunately, more than enough of that to know that that's not what's going to happen. But these guys didn't know, and he winks at Chief, and because Chief was like tightening his grip on the broom. And then he winks at Chief, and Chief kind of smiles.
That's another one of my favorite. Yeah, he gives him a little wink. I love that.
Yeah, and Chief kind of like relaxes a little bit and kind of smiles, kind of. Yeah, you're right. Like all these people are affected in different ways. Christy, you said it. Like Harding kind of takes on some of McMurphy's, like in the card game, kind of calling out the deals, and Cheswick is a little bit more assertive, and Chief, obviously, like we said, has the biggest change where he just asserts his whole life and says that this is not what it's about. I met somebody who's vibrant, and he saw that. He said he saw the parallels. He goes, they're working on you just like they did on my dad.
Yep.
So he kind of saw that, almost like a little bit of a mice and men-ish type thing of this dream of being free.
Yeah.
That's always just out of arm's reach. It was just, like that of really being free was just out of arm's reach, and very similar. And Chief kind of fulfilled that, he realizing, but maybe hopefully, learning the lessons of his father and of McMurphy, and kind of, you can be out there. It doesn't mean that society
and
has
Martini
to take
learned how to really
you,
bet a dime.
Yeah.
It took McMurphy to die.
This is a dime.
I bet a dime.
This is shit. You can't smoke it.
He puts the two halves together. It's a dime.
Well, there has to be. I mean, you look at this situation, you think, oh, this place is corrupt. It's evil. It's whatever. But there has to be obviously some legitimacy to it, because everybody else stays at the end. It's not like everybody gets up and they all escape like the Chief. So. Well, they must be doing something right for these people, but there's now a newfound perspective, I guess. How long do you think everybody's going to stick around? Are they going to leave on their own accord?
Like Shawshank, right? Like sometimes if you've been institutionalized for so long, that just becomes your safe place, and you just learn to maybe you adjust after something like that happens, and your existence within those four walls is better. But I think once you're institutionalized, it's hard. I think it's hard.
It's kind of sad because nobody comes to visit these guys. The only body gets visitors is McMurphy,
Candy,
right? He gets the.
Well, that's because he calls them, right? Candy.
Right, but nobody ever has a visitor. I mean, nobody talks of ever having had a visitor.
Even Turkle. Look, Turkle's happy when the visitors come. Can we talk about Turkle for a second? Turkle.
Right.
That's right.
Turkle, you literally let the inmates run the asylum. Yep. You literally became the cliche, right? You thought with your pecker. You never think with your pecker, Turkle. He let him in, and then he's like, what are you doing to me? And he doesn't learn. He doesn't learn because in The Shining, point, though, Jack fucks him over
totally
again.
Drunk.
Yeah.
It's Turkle, you're killing me.
Yeah, one job.
Broke his heart once
and
and literally
gone to do The Shining when he knew that Jack was going to be in that movie, right? He's
Probably. And talking about Turkle and about the end, Brad Dourif was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win. And he kind of did this role and then kind of disappeared for a while. Like he kind of really dropped off the face. He was going to be this thing, and then he kind of started reappearing all of a sudden, like later in life.
Always the psychotic,
the
killer.
Voice of Chucky.
Yeah.
Just all this weird stuff. But as Billy Bibbit, just a tender performance.
Yeah.
Just like everybody heart breaks for this kid, especially after he sleeps with Candy, right? And he comes out and he's speaking normally.
Yeah.
If it's only a couple of lines and you got to catch it. But we've been hearing him speak so often that it's pretty obvious.
That's the case. Yeah. Yep.
That's there was something that was released, literally, biologically and otherwise, but that Nurse Ratched just kind of comes back in and just sadistically
reminds him who's boss,
takes that control back. Like, what would your mother say? What would it's heartbreaking to see. And Brad Dourif, oh my God, what a great performance, because he totally was kind of a person that came out renewed. And she slowly like breaks him down to where he rats out that that McMurphy was the one that brought the girl. Like, she breaks him down to the point that he's like has no choice but to say, oh, McMurphy did this. It was his fault. They made me go, like, she's like, oh, they made you go in, and he's so broken down so quickly.
Yeah.
That he's like, they made me do it. McMurphy made me.
They all do it. Yep.
That someone gets, I've never seen somebody get torn down so quickly, and his performance in that is, you feel it.
Yeah.
You feel this person just crumbling back into, like, I was like, oh man, he was
at the end of the movie.
He was right there.
He was
right there, like,
the letting him sleep with Candy, and then he's on his way out with Chief, because everyone runs, and then when he hears the scream, he stops because of Billy. I mean, I'm not blaming Billy, but because of this relationship, or what, I don't think he felt a father figure relationship to him, but he definitely felt something for him. Like Sean was saying, he cared about these people, and because of this relationship is why he never gets out. Really, I mean, in the end, it's Billy that keeps him there. If Billy didn't convince him to let him sleep with Candy, they would have been out in the middle of the night instead of,
Yeah.
Well, Billy was like, when I have a free weekend. And the McMurphy's like, you busy now? Are you doing anything now?
Yeah. But
when I have a free weekend. He's like, you doing anything right now? It's like, kind
Christy,
of like,
it's what you said earlier, though. I think it's the nurse sees the weaknesses, but McMurphy sees the potential. And he sees what's good in all these folks. He sees that there's something more in Chief. He sees there's something more in Billy. And he maybe that is part of what keeps him there. But yeah, it's a great movie. Everybody should see it.
That's a great observation. Is that she is always going to exploit the weaknesses of them, right? Whereas he never. He sees those things as peculiarities, right? Or just being interesting characters. Like I said, even Tabor, like when he's introducing, when they're on the boat, and this is Dr. is Dr. Tabor, and he's like, kind of like, he's like, like they all start like they all, this is Dr. Cheswick, and Cheswick is like looking like he's like the shot is like he's like the way
you would believe it.
He's like a doctor, like you believe these are all doctors.
You could believe it, but the way they looked and the long beard and the glasses, that makes sense. He's a doctor.
Yeah, this is Mr. Harding, and he's wearing his scarf. He's wearing a scarf and a hat like a professor. Like it was
and
brilliant.
McMurphy looks like totally the least professional out of all of them, and these guys all look like the part.
Even the last scene with Christopher Lloyd when Chief runs and they have it on him, and he's like, like he puts his arm out, like he's at that crazy, like his eyes.
Yeah, and then he kind of like snaps. He's like, and he's like, then he gets like all serious. He's like, his head.
It's Jim from Taxi.
Yeah.
I like the scene on the boat too is when McMurphy goes down into the cabin with Candy, and they all start. They all like one by one. They're all the boat's like going nuts, and they're not. They know what to look for. They know what they're looking at. So that was great too.
And the boat's just going in circles, like they just Cheswick just like walks away, and the boat's just going in. And you see when they caught the fish, like McMurphy's like walking around the boat because the boat's going in a circle, and he has to keep like adjusting the line because it's not going straight. And he has to like follow the fish because
I'm going to go watch this movie as soon as we're done again.
There's a lot of great there's just a lot of great like tender moments as well in here. There's those and that's the point of it is that these are people. Mm-hmm. In the end, these are all people, and that, and I think McMurphy was just dismayed that they just didn't get treated decently. Like, everybody's got problems, but that's not a reason not, like he wanted to turn the music down, and can we just do that? Or we voted democratically, and there was just that his pushing against those things of just decent treatment. He wasn't asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars.
It also begs the question. I mean, these people were probably not as fucked up as when they came in. They probably had, but they recall the medication that they kept giving him and all this other stuff. I mean, that's what really got them in that state where they're constantly yelling, and there's like this, everybody gets in an argument, and it's like this, all of a sudden everybody starts going nuts, and it's chaos. And it's, McMurphy's like, what? All you need to do is lower the music so we could hear ourselves think. And little things like that can go a long way. Why aren't you people doing this for them? That's, he sees people being beaten down is what they're not being helped. They're being, you're not giving them the opportunities, the advantages that they need to become more confident. And, you never see them like one-on-one with therapists, like any of these guys. It's always Nurse Ratched feeding them medicine.
And then it devolves into a fight. It's funny. The factions, I noticed there was two factions. There was Harding, Cheswick, and Billy Bibbit. And then on the other side was Tabard, Fredrickson, and Seafeld. Like they always sat together, the three of them, and they're always kind of like almost like hens, like peck, like just always instigating. Yeah. Even the great Vincent Schiavelli is like, "Oh, you mean there's something wrong with us because we, you think a certain like they were always instigating the other side, and Harding is just trying to talk sense to them, like, I'm just trying, I'm trying to tell you, and Tabor's like, I want you to cut the bullshit, stop, like it's just like those interactions, the group sessions were some of the best written stuff and the best acted because that was an ensemble.
It's very human.
Of everybody just sitting in a chair, kind of, and waiting and just acting off of each other and just kind of, and like I said, even Danny DeVito, who probably has one of the hardest jobs because he's probably the one that needs the most amount of help. Let's put it that way of the group. Is just a great character. He's just like Sean says, he kind of disappears into it. And
he's so really don't realize, you're not used to hearing him that way. He's just constantly
squinting.
He's got that look on his face.
Always smiling. Always smiling.
Suns in his eyes.
It's a pleasure.
Like blissfully unaware.
You wouldn't necessarily call this a comedy per se, but I mean, it has such lighthearted moments in it that it's just it's so natural and so played so beautifully.
I think that's what everybody rebound, and I think that's what the change was. Is back when I used to watch it, for Jack Nicholson. The crazy people, crazy people and acting crazy. When I saw it again, it was just different. I really kind of, was able to appreciate the acting, but beyond that, beyond the acting was the emotion that I was feeling watching it, like watching
humanity.
Just watching Cheswick get upset about the cigarettes, and I just, you're hoarding the cigarettes and you're keeping it away from us because you want, because it's something you want to do, and and all these, you could feel all these things were building up. And the pressure was just kind of building on both sides, and both of them and both sides made a misstep of Nurse Ratched making the misstep of keeping him, and McMurphy overplaying his hand
Eric,
and thinking that he was too slick.
It's not a comedy, but I think, again, between the acting and the directing and just the storytelling as a whole, they did it was perfectly executed with a little levity. Putting balanced. This levity, because otherwise, how would we watch this? There's so much intensity, the subject matter, right. And there's so many things going on here with each of the characters. If you take Billy and you take Chief and you take McMurphy, and then you take all the other. There's otherwise, I mean, how would you get through it? You'd want to put a glass through your neck at the end of the watching the movie. So.
That's true. Yeah.
Much because Christy doesn't want to. We're going to do some favorite scenes, but before we do that, I noticed a callback in the scene where Chief, McMurphy, and Cheswick are waiting. Right, so they're on the floor where the electric shock is taking place, and there's all those people like in the hallways, just kind of like standing there. Watch the beginning of Amadeus. It's a direct callback when Salieri is in his hospital or asylum. It's the same. Milos Forman kind of used kind of called back to his own film because it's very much set up the same way that Salieri is in an asylum with a bunch of people that are not right in the head, but he is the one that's smarter than everybody, and he shouldn't really, like he was had that superiority complex. But the way the halls were set up with all the sick people in it, and Amadeus was the same thing. So
I will try to do that.
What's that?
I'll try to do that when I watch it for the first.
You never saw Amadeus?
You've never seen Amadeus?
I don't think so.
F. Murray Abraham.
And people get on me for Godfather?
No. That's not the same level.
Yes, it is.
No,
yes, it is, because Amadeus won probably more Oscars than Godfather. So,
you should see Amadeus.
Well, there's another film that Milos Forman did called The Fireman's Ball, which is a Czechoslovakian, and I think this film is widely compared to that when we talk about the slice of life, all of it, the exuberance, the pain, all of the stuff. That it's that kind of movie too. So I think he's kind of used to that level of. So I'm sure most of his films always call back to the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Doesn't count. All right, let's get rolling, Nick. Everything's going to be a standout. But what do you really like?
I really like the boat scene. I like how that was just a great scene. And it shows why this deserved the Oscar for Best Screenplay. Because, yes, you had the material that Ken Kesey wrote, but it was able to take this play that's set in one little scene, and open it up. You got it just realistically, like in a way that's believable. Like I said, you don't look at things like plot holes, like why did he jump over the fence but not escape? You so believe the characters in the plot that you're like, well, why did the character go back in the bus? Like you're literally looking at that stuff from character motivation rather than was that a writing mistake? No, it was intentional. And why is that? Why is he thinking that? What's going through his mind? So yeah, I love that scene.
Cool. Nick, can I ask you a question? Eric? Just one question. Does one of them die in the boat on the book when they go fishing or fall over?
I read it back in like college, so
it was only a couple of years ago, Nick.
That was a long time ago.
I felt like
30 years ago. Man.
I guess I'll have to read
Christopher Lloyd is like when he's like hanging off the boat. Maybe is that maybe a call back to that or something, or I don't know.
I love it.
Maybe.
All right, Eric, what do you got?
Oh, of course, the scene with where he finds out the truth. Like that whole scene, the build up, the tension of that whole scene is amazing. Yeah. Like Christy said, masterclass. From him like looking like what you guys are here voluntarily? What are you doing? And then it just builds and builds, and they're arguing, and then they're yelling, and and then it's just the chaos. The whole riot happens, and
Mr. McMurphy's been running a casino in the tub room, and
it's.
I love that line. You must be committed. This couldn't be voluntary.
The absolute tension in that scene and the way it builds up, it is so good. That's my favorite scene of the film, and everything changes from that point on. So, yeah.
Christy, what do you got?
Like a Cheswick and say, "I won't, I won't, Mac, I won't." I only have one.
No, well, just start with one.
Well.
Nick said only one.
He's wearing the cardigan.
That's it. He's wearing the cardigan of choice.
I can't do. The boat scene. I can't.
Just pick one. Just say one. It's easy. Just say one. Wow, something has never happened.
Because literally the entire movie is one. Fine,
so
World Series.
Any scene and talk about it, and it's a great scene.
When he goes to the vote,
that's a great one.
And she screws him over, and Chief, sorry, Sean, and Chief, and Chief finally raises his hands, and McMurphy's like, the Chief, he raises his hand, and she's like, no, the vote was closed, the vote, and then he's like, like fuck you, and like sits down, and he's like, oh, all right. And then he's looking at the TV, and you can see the reflection that when you're looking at it, you see their reflection as he's doing it, and again, just the the acting, and then with them looking like this guy's crazy. At first, they're like, what the hell is he looking at? There's nothing on the TV, and then they pick up on it, and they're like, and then they get involved into this whole fake ball game that's going on, and then they get genuinely excited about it, and they're all cheering and yelling and running around. It's great. Like it's infectious. Like even viewing it, you're like, this is great. So if I can only pick one, but there's more. Sean,
there you go.
Sean, go
You
big.
did it. Sean, what do you got?
Since Christy, I'm not gonna. I like that's probably there, but the next one I would say is that when he comes back from the electroshock therapy and he's like walking in like a zombie and he gives the chief the wink. I love that. I think that's like, don't worry, it's okay, And then Chief's the first one he lets know. And then
Sean, do you think he was still playing Nurse Ratched because he kind of was like, oh, I'm prepared to be a good boy now, like, oh, Mr. McMurphy, we were talking about this. He goes, no, that's fine. Yeah, I'm or do you think he was, trying to get her guard down for more later?
Probably. I think so. Yeah? I think the shock therapy, again, like he survived it. It wasn't, it sucked, but I don't think it's something he can.
I think Sean's right. I think he said, if this is the worst they got, I beat it. So there's nothing they can do to me. Like,
in the play, I think he intentionally, once he realizes, oh man, they're going to keep me here forever. I think in the play, the character does kind of play along with it a little bit. But I think that's evidence that he can't. This is his nature. He can't. Even if he tries, he couldn't. He's like a fuse that's going to blow up.
He can't follow the rules. He can't.
Was the play? Was this filmed? By the way, do you have footage of you guys?
We do.
Playing
we do.
I would love to see it. That would be
It'll
great.
Be on Amazon Prime. My favorite. Let me throw out my favorite scene really quick. The second basketball game, because they're misfits. It's like the Bad News Bears. But when they finally throw the ball to Chief and he puts it in the basket, you would have thought they won the world. You would have thought they won the World Series. There, like they beat the guards. Like they were so excited. Like you would have thought what happened there, because they were so like, oh my god, like we got a basket, and the guards, I think that was one of the turning points too. Is that made them feel like normal, like we can, we're playing basketball against the guards, and they're not just beating us and taking advantage.
Yeah.
McMurphy had the strategy, put Chief under the basket and just get the ball to him, and he'll just lop it in.
I think you're right.
I think that was a great kind of scene of not necessarily McMurphy getting them on his side, but making them feel like they've got value.
They've probably never scored a basket. I think you're right. I think that was probably the first basket they may have ever scored. The guards.
Yeah, if they even ever played them at all, right? Because at first time, Danny DeVito's character has the ball and throws it against the fence. You're like, what the hell are you doing? I'm over here, or it gets it to Harding, like it gives it to Harding, and Harding's like, he's like, pass the ball, Harding, pass the ball. He goes, you weren't open. He goes, I'm standing right here.
Well, I think it's unanimous. I mean, the entire movie is just
exactly.
So they put it together. This is something that
it's the whole thing. Yep.
Yeah. If you've never seen it, you're in for a treat. It's one of those ones I wish I could experience again. Probably, like I said, when I was younger, I was just watching everything, and I was learning about movies and becoming a movie fan. But I almost wish, maybe I'm seeing it later in life when you can really kind of, not be, it's Jack Nicholson and it's that kind of thing, and watching it for that. And really kind of appreciating, but actually seeing it now is almost like was almost like watching it over again, because I really did see it.
Yeah, it's been
after not having seen it so long. I was really getting emotionally invested in a lot of those things.
Absolutely,
now, just because of the performances. I can't say enough.
I think Dean, you and I saw it together. I think that might have been my first time seeing it. I think you did have the VHS.
Yeah,
I think we watched it together.
It's just just an intense thing, but it's a great experience to have.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It takes you through a roller coaster. But a lot of the best films and art and pieces of art do that, right? They bring out a lot of different emotions in you.
Yeah.
I think this is one of them. And I'll say it again, Jack Dunphy is full of shit.
Worthy of its award.
That's your next t-shirt.
That should be your next t-shirt.
Jack Dunphy is full of shit. Nick, will you wear a Jack Dunphy is full of shit t-shirt?
I guess
Only
I can't
with
wear
a
it to
cardigan.
class because of professional.
Only with a cardigan.
Make it in a woman's
You
fit.
can wear,
I
you
will
can wear it
happily
under the
buy it.
sweater. There you go. Cool. Well, I think that's going to do it for another one of the best picture Oscar winners. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Go see it. Highly acclaimed again. One of the only 3 films to win the Big Five. So this is this is a movie that's in really special and elite company. You really need to be recognized for those top 5 awards. You really need to have something special. And this was, and we probably didn't say enough about Louise Fletcher, about the great performance that she gave. So watch it. It's easy for Jack Nicholson to take up all the oxygen in his films. But he's got a worthy adversary in this film.
Sure.
For someone that, for an actor or actress, however you want to call it, that goes toe to toe with him.
Mm-hmm.
And brings out the best in him, and she really she leaves it all up on the screen too, and is much well deserved her Best Actress award as well. So, that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 Podcast. You can find us on social media at 3324 Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a button that says like. It's like a thumbs up. You hit that one, and then there's another one that says subscribe, and you hit that one, and you're in the club. You're part of us, so you're part of the 3324 Podcast family. So go ahead and do that. And if you want to pick up some merch, hit us up on Facebook. There you go. Shill it. Everybody show it. For those that are listening, you're probably, what the hell is this? Why is he still talking? Well, that's why you got to watch the video too. So for Nick, for Sean, for Christy, and of course, my best friend Eric, this is Dean asking you to please be kind and rewind.